Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be listening to the second part of the Analyst Deku series. If you enjoy the episode, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Chapter 13, Grief. Izuku was woken up by the smell of fast food katsudon. His mom buys katsudon from the place down the road when she wants to get him a treat but didn't have the time to make it herself. He rolled off of the couch with a dull thud. "Hey mom," he said, rubbing his eyes. Then he froze, as he saw Kigo standing in the kitchen. That's right. His mom was gone. She would never make him katsudon ever again. They would never laugh over cartoons on the rare Sunday mornings she didn't have work. They would never go to the mall again where he would excitedly drag his mom from hero store to hero store while she patiently listened to him. He wouldn't even be able to go visit her in the hospital, where they would have long winding talks about anything and everything until he had to go to work. She really was gone. Fledgling? Kigo asked, and when did he move to stand in front of Izuku? What's wrong? I'm not hungry, he said quickly, fleeing to his bedroom. He's pretty sure the door plate fell to the ground from how hard he slammed his door. His lungs burned as he gasped for breath like a drowning man, sliding down to sit next to the door. He was shaking as a weight pressed down on his chest, his head filling with fogs. He hasn't been in his bedroom since yesterday, having fallen asleep on the couch while working. The stares of All Might plastered on every poster, bobblehead, pillow burned his skin, silently mocking him for thinking he was allowed to have anything. Burden. Quirkless. Pathetic. You killed her. Burden. Quirkless freak. Sniveling coward. You killed her. Burden. Quirkless scum. Take a swan dive off the roof and hope for a quirk in your next life. You killed her. Kid fledged to me dash. The words were choppy as red filled his vision. Need you breathe dash. A pattern was being tapped onto the back of his hand, and he tried to follow in stuttering breaths. In, and out. In, and out. In, and out. Eventually, the weight on his chest let up enough so that he could finally breathe. Awareness trickled back to him slowly. He was sitting with his back to the wall next to his door, his knees tucked to his chest. His face was tear-stained, he could already feel his eyes getting puffy. One hand was clutching his chest while the other was being held by Kigo, who was kneeling in front of him. His wings were spread out around him, blocking Izuku's view of the room. You back with me, fledgling? The hero asked, still rubbing gentle circles into the back of his hand. Izuku nodded shakily. Can you tell me what happened? My mom, he stuttered out. She always got katsudon from the same place after work. And she's not here. And then I came in and all I could see was All Might and I could hear the voices. Calling me a burden, quirkless freak, pathetic coward dash. Izuku, Kigo's voice cut through, and he grabbed Izuku's hands, pulling them to his lap and away from the hair they were pulling. I'm fine, Izuku responded instinctively. Kigo sighed, then picked up Izuku like he was a couple of grapes, his wings continuing to block Izuku's view until they made it to the living room. He was dumped onto the couch, and Sushi climbed onto his lap with a needy meow. Alright, I was gonna wait a few days until everything was more settled, but I think we need to talk about it now, Kigo said somberly, sitting down next to him on the couch. We'll have to talk about your mom's funeral. Izuku sucked in a breath, petting the purring bundle on his lap as he nodded for Kigo to continue. We'll have to read her will, and decide where it's actually happening. You don't have to worry about money, me and the other heroes can pay for it. Do you want to do it sooner or later? Sooner, Izuku rasped out, his throat kinda dry. Okay, Kigo said. And your room, we should redecorate. Take down all the, All Might. Izuku nodded. I don't think I can go in there right now. That's fine, Kigo responded quickly, looking over to his phone. I'll take down and put away the All Might stuff, and you stay here with Sushi and eat dinner. He nodded blankly, and Kigo got up, putting the takeout container in his hands. He also got his laptop put on his lap, Sushi moving to curl up next to his side. Why don't you do some online shopping while you eat? Kigo asked. Izuku gave the man a small smile, which Kigo visibly brightened at. The hero gave him a small thumbs up, then went into Izuku's room. He pulled one of his mom's crocheted blankets over his shoulders, starting to dig into the food. It was surprisingly warm, and he started to devour it, not realizing how hungry he was. He opened the HN on his laptop to check on the others. UA. Teachers and Company, 6:29 p.m. Falcon, Hawks, is online. Falcon, help, Izuku is having a panic attack, what do I do? Falcon, Hawks, Eraserhead, Silver the Hedgehog, Ingenium, Anya Amesova, Midnight, Jack, Bugs Bunny, Mirako, and God, Nedzu, are all online. Eraserhead, do you know what triggered it? Falcon, no. Falcon, he just woke up, said hey mom, then went into his room. Falcon, he slammed the door but I can hear him hyperventilating from here. Eraserhead, okay well go see him, try and get his attention, don't touch him at first, if he doesn't come around after a minute, gently grab one of his hands and tap a breathing pattern on the back of his hand. Silver the Hedgehog, use your wings to block off any other potential triggers. Anya Amesova, but also don't put your wings too close to him, you don't want him to be claustrophobic. Falcon, alright thanks. Falcon, okay he's back from the panic attack, his triggers seem to be the All Might posters in his room and the smell of the katsudon reminding him of his mom. Anya Amesova, so he's starting to grieve. Jack, Bugs Bunny, room makeover. Anya Amesova, try to help through his grief, like helping him arrange the funeral. Eraserhead, just stick by him. Silver the Hedgehog, and we'll all help him W the funds. Falcon, he'll let him know, I'm working on pulling down the All Might stuff in his room RN. Anya Amesova, what hospital? We can just put it all on Nedzu's tab. God, I would happily pay any expenses. Falcon, Hawks, Eraserhead, Silver the Hedgehog, Ingenium, Anya Amesova, Midnight, Jack, Bugs Bunny, Mirako, God, Nedzu, and Deku-chan, Izuku, are all online. Deku-chan, it's Musudafu General. Jack, Bugs Bunny, Broccoli-chan. Anya Amesova, Deku-chan. Silver the Hedgehog, Izuku. Eraserhead, are you okay? Deku-chan, I'm okay. Silver the Hedgehog, we'll be here for you. Silver the Hedgehog, you don't have to grieve alone. Deku-chan, thanks guys, smiley face. Deku-chan, I'm gonna go shopping online for my room makeover. Silver the Hedgehog, have fun. Anya Amesova, get some fluffy things. Jack, Bugs Bunny, make sure you eat dinner. Deku-chan, I will, smiley face. Kigo rolled up the last All Might poster, gently putting it back into its roll. As much as he desired to take the merch and torch it all, a lot of this merch was stupid expensive, and pretty old. The kid could probably make a fortune selling it all online, if that's what he wanted. He kept the original boxes and everything. He looked around the room, trying to get a sense of things. The walls were completely bare, with one corkboard above his desk covered in notes, and painted a nice light gray. The shelves only had a few succulents, the desk had one Ingenium bobblehead on it, and the bedding was replaced with neutral dark gray pillowcases and comforters that he found in the closet. The bookshelves were still filled, since there wasn't any merch on them. On a side note, Kigo was mentally filing those plans to get Izuku to a therapist. He opened the door, placing the All Might nameplate onto Izuku's desk before stepping out. He could see the kid had finished his katsudon, placing the empty takeout container onto his coffee table, and was currently browsing through whiteboards. Kigo grabbed his chicken teriyaki, wrinkling his nose as he bites into it, and it turns out to be cold. He keeps eating it anyways, plopping down onto the couch next to Izuku. What ya got so far, fledgling? I got a cat tower for sushi, Izuku mumbled, still scrolling through whiteboards. I also got more plants, and some merch for other heroes. That's a good selection, Kigo said, reaching out a wing to wrap the kid in while sending a feather to get the TV remote. You mind if I put on something while I eat? The kid hummed, so Kigo turned on some bird documentary, watching Izuku slowly relax more and more into his side. He sent a couple of feathers to throw out the takeout container and wooden chopsticks, letting the kid cuddle up to him. Izuku muttered next to him as he debated the different prices of whiteboards and calendars, checking sales between different sites. Kigo smiled to himself. The kid's strong, he'll be okay. Chapter 14, Visit to the Eyrie. Izuku was putting the finishing touches on his analysis of a villain in Hosu, absent-mindedly drinking his fourth cup of coffee. Some nature documentary was playing on the TV, but it registered as static in his mind. He had long abandoned the couch, now just sitting on the floor in front of his laptop. A red feather flew in front of his face, booping his nose. Izuku squawked, falling backwards and knocking over his coffee. He just managed to save it and his laptop. "Kigo, US. Hi Izuku." The hero called cheerfully like he didn't just almost spill Izuku's coffee. "You're sure up early? I didn't think I'd see you until noon." Izuku squinted at the clock on his laptop. "Holy shit, it's 6 already." The two roommates engaged in a staring contest. Izuku was not losing. "Kid, did you get any sleep last night?" I close my eyes every time I blink." "Kami, kid." Kigo closed his eyes and put a hand on his forehead. "You're going to make me go gray. How are you still awake?" "Coffee." "What?" Izuku gestured with the mug. "This is my fourth cup." Then he took a very long sip. With slurping. Kigo's eyes visibly twitched. Izuku's eyes widened as they landed onto the balcony of the area. Kigo had to hold his hand as he walked into his office. Plush carpet, a nice desk, the wall that had the balcony was made entirely of windows, and there was a TV on the other side of the wall across from his desk. On the floor was a little nook that was filled with pillows and blankets, and there were a few file cabinets behind the desk with a coffee maker on it. There are a bunch of paintings of various birds on the walls, and a collection of some of the best fan art that was framed and hung on his walls, with little plagues on the walls. Embarrassingly, a few of Izuku's drawings were also up there. "Really? The bird paintings?" Izuku sassied. "I have a brand to keep," Fledgelling, Kigo shot back, dragging him to the elevator. "Which also had bird paintings." "Alright, your office is one thing, but the elevator is a little excessive." He raised an eyebrow. "Are there bird paintings in the entire building?" The silence was damning. "Of course there is." They walked into the small cafeteria, which had a small KFC in it. Of course. There were a few sidekicks wandering around, but Kigo pulled him to a table with two sidekicks in particular. "Yes," Izuku was still holding his hand. "He's a little touch-starved, sue him." "Saisei, Mitsurin." Kigo waved. The two women waved back. The first, the sidekick Phoenix, had scarlet wings coming from her body and long wavy dark ginger hair, light blue eyes and freckles. She was wearing a simple sweater and jeans, with a pair of glasses on her nose, and was also on fire, although it didn't seem to be disturbing anything. The other woman, the sidekick Karalax, had many piercings in her ears and on her face, her hair a rainbow mohawk and wings a shimmering mosaic of colors. She was wearing her hero costume, a silver bodysuit with thigh-high combat boots and her goggles around her neck. He was glad to see she took some of his suggestions, based on some of the armored padding on her body. "Hey boss." "Hello, sir. So, you two remember Deku, right?" Kigo asked. The two looked at each other. "Yes." Phoenix asked skeptically. "Where is this going?" Karalax asked, raising an eyebrow. "And who's the kid?" Kigo let go of Izuku's hand, instead wrapping an arm around his shoulder and dragged him forwards. "This is Deku." Their eyes comically widened in disbelief, looking at each other. "You're not just fucking with us, are you?" Karalax asked. "Me?" Kigo asked in mock offense. "I would never." Izuku rolled his eyes, elbowing the hero in the gut. "Hi, I'm Deku," he said, holding his hand out to Karalax. "I'm glad you took the suggestion about adding a layer of body armor to your costume." The woman grinned, taking his hand. "Karalax, though you knew that already," she said, then gestured to Phoenix. "This is Dash." "Phoenix, I know," Izuku said, turning to the other hero with his hand out. "Pleasure to meet you." "Pleasure to meet you too," the heroine said, taking his hand. "Oh, now you have manners," Kigo grumbled from behind him. Izuku kicked him in the shins. "So, what's all this for?" Karalax asked, continuing to eat her breakfast. "I have paperwork, and this one," Kigo whacked him in the back of the head, "cannot be trusted to be left at home alone, so I offered to let him visit the area in person." "I can be trusted?" Izuku pouted. Kigo turned to his sidekicks. A couple nights ago I caught him training the raccoons to fight. Hey. Don't badmouth the 3rd Raccoon Battalion. The women were trying to suppress giggles. And what about the other 2 battalions? Karalax asked. The 1st Raccoon Battalion is in Orochimono Park and the 2nd Raccoon Battalion is behind Hori-san's shop. Kigo groaned from behind him. I'm grabbing a bucket and doing paperwork. You 2 are gonna get an email about it, sometime later, I don't know when. Make sure he doesn't start a 4th Raccoon Battalion. Hey. The hero walked towards the KFC outlet, and Izuku rolled his eyes. You guys don't think you could convince him to take down some of the bird paintings? The amount he has is honestly a little excessive. Phoenix adjusted her glasses, probably changing the subject to something other than her boss's tastes in decorations. Well, the analyses we both got from you were a while ago. If you like, we could go into the gym and you could give us something based on where we are now. We'll pay you, Karalax added, leaning over onto the table with a suggestive eyebrow wiggle. Izuku raised an eyebrow. Pay me what? I know where a secret stash of donuts is. Throw a coffee in. Deal. Izuku grinned as he followed the 2 heroines to the Ares gym, already pulling out his notebook. Kigo leaned on the doorway, looking into the analyst branch of his agency. The analysts and Izuku were standing around a large center table, files from various cases spread out everywhere. Izuku had his laptop open as he flitted through various tabs, and he moved through cases like lightning. On the faces of the analysts he hired, Kigo could see the awe on their faces, a match of the awe that was on his face when he first saw the kid in action. I'd be surprised if the kid doesn't completely solve all of our cases, Saisei said, coming up behind him. She was in costume, about to go on patrol. I have no doubt, he didn't even realize he was smiling until she raised an eyebrow. Well, if you've got a case to pick up, don't let me stop you. Saisei rolled her eyes fondly, slipping into the branch. Excuse me, she cleared her throat. I'm here for the habit headgear case. Oh. That one is, this one. Umaji said, grabbing a folder and handing it to the hero. She opened it up, flipping through it. There's a lot of post-it notes in here. Sorry, Izuku muttered sheepishly, probably pulled out of his trance by Saisei's entrance. I got a little excited. Don't be, she said with a smile, closing the case and handing it back. She tapped the comms. I'll be in touch, but I do have patrol. The group collectively waved bye to her as she walked out. Kigo stepped forward then. And you, Izuku, have a pair of glasses to go get. Oh, right. Izuku exclaimed, starting to pack up his notebook and laptop. Sorry, I got a little excited. I know, Kigo rolled his eyes, Mister, I'm going to stay up all night working while drinking 4 cups of coffee. Actually, that's relatively tame for me, Izuku responded back. Kigo sighed. Kid, you're going to be the death of me. What kind of glasses do you need? Umarai asked. Cause we've got a few spare pairs of blue light glasses if you want one. Actually, that's exactly what I need, Izuku beamed. Then let me get a pair. Umarai scuttled into the back room, getting a simple pair of round black frames. But she placed them on his face. They seem to fit, she said, fussing with the sides of his head. Yeah, they don't feel like they're going to fall off, he muttered, moving his head from side to side. I don't feel anything different. You're not going to feel anything yet, Fujino pointed out, taking a sip of his coffee. What you will notice is when you don't have a raging headache. That's a good point. Kigo huffed in amusement, sending out a feather to slowly drag Izuku to him. Well, I want dinner, so we're going to go. Izuku rolled his eyes, waving goodbye to his people. As they walked out of the area, Kigo said, You look good. Thanks. He responded with a beaming smile. What Kigo wouldn't do for this kid. Chapter 15, Consequences. I fucking hate paperwork, Kigo muttered, filling out the last page. There was paperwork to transfer control of the area to Saisei, paperwork to create a new branch in Musudafu, and then paperwork to give control of that branch to Mitsurin. At least once the branch was in Mitsurin's control, all the necessary setup paperwork would be her problem. It's the little miracles. He smiled as he checked his phone, cracking his neck and stretching his back. It seemed that Netsu had received his message about Musudafu General Hospital and Aldera Junior High, if the threatening smiley face was to be believed. Seriously, how did he and Izuku manage to make smiley faces threatening? He raised an eyebrow when his phone went off, the Pink Panther theme that he had set for Detective Tsukachi ringing through his office. "What's up, detective? I have a lady named Bakugo Mitsuki screaming at Sansa to see an Izuku-chan." Kigo sighed. He really didn't want to have to talk to the Bakugos today, but apparently the universe had decided for him. "Who else is there?" "Her husband and son." "Well, I wasn't planning on doing this today, but I might as well get this over with." There was a pause, then the detective spoke in a warning tone. "What were you planning to do?" "Don't worry about it, Tsukachi." Kigo had finished putting away his paperwork, sticking a post-it note on the pile of paperwork for the Eri Jr. "I'll be on my way." "Seriously, what were you click?" Kigo jumped off of the balcony, flying out and towards the Musudafu Police Department, slipping his phone into his pocket. He could answer Tsukachi's questions in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes turned into 10 minutes as he flew lazy circles in the sky, procrastinating the detective's grilling as much as possible. But eventually, he flew down to the station. The flight helped him sort out his thoughts. While Izuku was right that the teachers were partially to blame for teaching Bakugo, the kid still did so out of his own free will. He wasn't completely blameless, and while Kigo's gonna give him a second chance, from Izuku, Bakugo wasn't gonna get off scot-free. Kigo strolled in, reveling in the amazed looks he got from ongoers. When he entered the police station, the officers clearly tried to keep the amazed looks to themselves, but overall didn't approach him. However, an officer with a cat head approached him. "Officer Sansa, if the name tag was correct." "Detective Tsukachi is waiting for you in his office," Sansa said respectfully, turning on his heel. With nothing else to do, it's not like he has a map of the station, Kigo followed him. "Are the Bakugos in his office too?" Kigo asked. "Yes, they were causing a disturbance." Sansa made a face like he had bitten into a lemon, and Kigo had to bite down a chuckle. As they approached the door labeled Detective Tsukachi Naomasa, they could hear both a distinctly feminine voice and what Kigo remembered as the Bakugo kid's voice yelling. When Sansa opened the door, it was to Tsukachi behind his desk with his hands up, an older woman with spiky blonde hair, Bakugo Mitsuki, his brain helpfully supplied him, leaning over with her hands on the desk. Surprisingly, she wasn't yelling at the detective, but at her son, who was yelling back. Seems like he didn't just inherit her looks. The husband was just sitting calmly in his chair. In other words, it was a clusterfuck. "Hawks, good to see you," Tsukachi said, clearly relieved. "Why does a fucking pro hero need to be here?" Bakugo-sen shouted. "What happened to Izuku-chan?" "Ma'am, that is classified information," Kigo said smoothly, maneuvering awkwardly into the room with his wings. "But rest assured, he is safe." "What do you mean, classified information?" "With all due respect No, you don't fucking understand," Bakugo-san snarled. "I just got a phone call from the hospital that Inko passed away a fucking week ago, and I was never told. And when I asked to see her son, my nephew, I'm told that I have no right to that information because we aren't blood relatives. She's my best friend." "And you she smacked the Bakugo kid when he was about to speak up, "We'll talk about your shitty behavior later." Kigo and Tsukachi both looked at each other, with the same thought. "Yikes. Nedzu would want to hear about that," Kigo muttered. "Why would the fucking principal of UA want to know about shitty Deku's mom?" The Bakugo kid shouted, earning himself another smack in the head. "Because Midoriya-kun didn't even get a call," Tsukachi said. "The only way he found out was the receptionist telling him after he went to visit her." When Kigo raised an eyebrow at the detective, he said, "They deserve to know something." "Why the fuck would anyone do that?" Bakugo-sen shouted. "You fucking know why." Bakugo kid shouted back. The Bakugo husband cleared his throat, causing the two standing up to look at each other and slowly sit down. "We would like to know where he is," he said calmly. "Or at least how he is. A hero has him under their care using their emergency fostering license," Kigo said. "We won't say which, for both of their safeties, but rest assured that Midoriya is safe." It seemed like the whole family breathed a sigh of relief, even the kid, surprisingly enough. "That's good to hear," the Bakugo husband said. Kigo turned around a chair and sat down. "What are your names? I never caught them on the way in." "Oh, of course. I'm Bakugo Mitsuki," This is my husband, Bakugo Masaru, and this brat is my son, Bakugo Katsuki. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mitsuki-san, Masaru-san. Kigo shook each of their hands. Apologies for the classified information, but currently Musudafu General Hospital and Aldera Junior High are both under investigation. But why? Mitsuki asked, confusion plain on her face. Interestingly, Katsuki's face scrunched up at the school's name, something like anger and guilt on his face. Quirk discrimination, Tsukachi said, as well as student neglect and academic fraud. Is that why Izuku transferred out of school? Masaru asked. Among other things, yes, Kigo said. We also need to talk about your son. What does cats have to do with any of this? Mitsuki shouted, standing back up and slamming her palms on the desk again. Because he's the main instigator of the bullying against Midoriya. The entire family went silent, which is almost scarier. Cats, is this true? Mitsuki asked quietly. Katsuki growled, snapping back, and any remorse or guilt he previously showed was gone. Deku fucking deserved it? The Bakugo parents gasped, and Mitsuki smacked him on the back of the head. What the fuck? No, I don't want to hear your justifications, you fucking brat. How could you? Kigo cleared his throat and flapped his wings, fluffing out his feathers. Mitsuki huffed, sitting back down. Neither Bakugo were calm, just letting that anger simmer. Midoriya made a fair point when I talked to him about this, he said, letting his feathers rest back down. It's not entirely his fault, the teachers were ignoring the bullying at best and actively encouraging it at worst. However, this doesn't mean he's going to go get out of this unpunished. We decided the following. Kigo slid a small packet across to the Bakugos for them to flip through as he spoke. Katsuki is blacklisted from UA. He is allowed to go to a hero school though, preferably a boarding school. He is also required to go to anger management classes and therapy, and he'll be attending the school on probation, one strike and he'll be expelled. The entire family seemed to be silent. Thank you, for doing this for Katsuki, even if he doesn't deserve it, Mitsuki said slowly, blinking back tears. Katsuki started to growl, but Masaru placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, and he cut off with a simple huff. You should be thanking Midoriya, Kigo said, flicking his wing absent-mindedly. He's the one who asked for Bakugo to continue being a hero. Bakugo could make a fine hero, he just needs an attitude check. The family quietly shuffled out, Katsuki dragging his feet and Mitsuki death glaring her son. Tsukachi glanced over at Kigo. That wasn't what I expected. Kigo sighed, completely exhausted. I'm going to go back to the agency and take a nap. The detective also sighed. Kami, I wish. He snorted. Well, here's to hoping. They both mock cheered, and Kigo flew off, going back to the agency. Hopefully it hasn't been overrun by raccoons. Chapter 16, The Plot Thickens. Investigation team for Broccoli-chan, 8:29 a.m. Nedzu, we must have a meeting at UA today. Detective Tsukachi, uh-oh. Eraserhead, oh no. Hawks, I have to get Izuku to UA today for Hound Dog, meet then? Detective Tsukachi, that works for me. Izuku took a deep breath in, playing with the hem of his shirt while he shuffled outside of the door. He was still nervous, even though he knew that he shouldn't be, logically. Just the idea of talking about his feelings to a total stranger made his skin crawl. You're gonna be fine, Izuku's gruff voice made him jump a bit. He was so lost in his thoughts that he forgot about the hero who led him there. Ryu is a good person. Hell, I've gone to him about my own problems. Right, Izuku nodded. And the first session is just about connecting and getting to know me. Izuku gently nudged him into the office. It didn't look like a stereotypical therapist's office. Hound Dog himself had a spinny chair that he sat on, and there were multiple beanbag chairs around. A bookshelf was against the wall, and next to Hound Dog's desk was a small table covered in fidget toys. There was a small jar of candy next to Hound Dog's computer. Midoriya-kun, it's good to see you, Hound Dog said. Come in, make yourself comfortable. Izuku nodded, sitting down on one of the beanbag chairs. Thank you, Hound Dog-san. Please, call me Inui, he said. And if you would like, you can grab one of the fidgets off of the table. Izuku plucked up a little cube covered in buttons. With one hand occupied by the fidget, his other hand stopped wringing his shirt, letting him breathe a little bit easier. Marginally. Now, this is the first session, and my goal is to make this as safe of a space as possible for you, Ho Inui-san continued, making notes on his clipboard. We don't have to talk about anything you don't want to, and you are the one who sets the pace. That made him relax a bit. He's not diving into the deep end right away. How much do you already know? Only the basics, what's already on your medical file, Inui-san said. But I want to hear it from you. Izuku nodded, took a deep breath in, and started from the very beginning. I'm sorry, it's been what? Kigo had slammed his hands down on the table, his feathers fluffed all the way out. He was well aware that it wasn't very professional of him, but damn it he didn't care. Eraserhead and the detective were in similar states of shock, and Nezu was grimacing as he sipped his tea. They had just entered the room, and the stoat slaps them with this. The detective stood up from next to him, putting a hand on his shoulder. Nezu, I'm afraid we're gonna need a bit more context. Of course, Nezu responds with a nod, holding up a teapot. Would anyone like some tea? All three of them shook their heads, with Kigo slowly sitting down, the detective doing so after him. As you know, I have been doing my own private investigations into Aldera Junior High and Musutafu General Hospital. Nezu had a wicked gleam in his eye, making the three of them shiver. I had finished sending my report on Aldera to the police, and was going through previous billings and medical records of Midoriya Inko when I realized that all paper trails of her body stopped 4 days ago. Which is the day after Midoriya-san reportedly died, the detective said. So her body's been missing for 4 days and the hospital did nothing? Eraserhead asked. So I kept looking, Nezu continued. And I found security footage of villains stealing the body. Send it to me, the detective said solemnly. We'll find them. Already done, the stoat sipped his tea. We're looking for a villain with a warping quirk and a villain with a disintegration quirk. Kigo slumped over, his head in his hands. What am I going to tell Izuku? They hadn't even started making funeral arrangements and this happened. Eraserhead spoke up. We have to tell him. It's illogical not to. It was the detective who spoke up, surprisingly. I don't think it's a good idea. The kid attempted suicide 3 days ago, and he's still grieving. We should let him finish mourning before we spring this on him. It'll be worse if we treat him like glass, Eraserhead said. He's not fragile. He's not in the best mental state either, it'll be better if we wait until he's recovered some. Nezu sipped his tea. Hawks, you are the one who is currently the acting guardian of Midoriya-kun. What do you think? Kigo's wings fluttered nervously. He's a strong kid, but I don't know. It might just be a me thing, but you didn't see him when he had a panic attack after entering his room. I'm worried about the kid, but he deserves to know. He dragged a hand down his face. All his training from the HPSC never prepared him for this. I'm no good with this stuff. You three are probably better informed than I am. Nezu closed his eyes, and set his teacup down. I think we should wait to tell him until we have Inui-san's opinion. He'll have the best picture of Midoriya-kun's current mental state. The three men looked at each other. It was the best compromise they were gonna get. Eraserhead stood up first. I have papers I have to grade, he said, then muttered under his breath something about idiotic students. The detective did so next. I'll get started on processing the security footage you sent me, he said, adjusting his hat. Kigo finally stood up with a sigh, letting his wings fold up. I'll go wait for Izuku, he said, checking his phone for the time. Not even 15 minutes, damn. And his inbox was full of emails. Nezu nodded, a clear sign of dismissal as he went back to sipping his tea with his eyes closed. The three shuffled out of there awkwardly, and Kigo breathed a sigh of relief. Eraserhead just nodded before walking off, leaving the detective and Kigo standing there awkwardly. Kigo cleared his throat. You'll update me on how the investigation is going, right? Of course, the detective smiled, something that was probably meant to be reassuring but just came across as strained. Now, if you'll excuse me. Kigo nodded, stepping out of the way as the detective left. With a sigh, he turned to find his way to Hound Dog's office. He was not looking forward to the next 45 minutes. Chapter 17, Getting Ready for the Gala. After only a month, things seem to have settled down. Izuku has been going to therapy every week with Hound Dog, and he seems to be getting better. There were a few bumps in the road, like Kigo having to enforce a bedtime and get rid of the coffee machine. Overall, it has gotten better. Izuku's bedroom has been fully redecorated, and a few more bird-themed decorations made their way into the apartment. Izuku's schooling was all online, so most of the time he hung out with the other heroes. He spent a lot of time at the Eri Jr., Kigo wasn't a name guy, Suhim, and Ue, but he also spent time at Rumi's agency, Kitsubutsu Academy, and Sir Nitai's agency. He was making bank helping sidekicks improve and solving cases. Kigo would be even more proud of him if he stopped fucking up his sleep schedule. Kigo himself had cut down on patrols, spending more time getting his teaching license. He and Nedzu struck a deal where he'll be spending the next 10 months doing a fast-tracked course of the classwork learning, and the next year he could be an assistant to one of the heroics teachers. He was also funneling information to Nedzu, holding up his end of the bargain. Hound Dog still hasn't given them the green light to tell Izuku about his mom's body. There has been no activity from the villains since, although Nedzu's digging unearthed the fact that they had been stealing bodies before this. Unfortunately, the case has gone cold, so they can only wait. "Hey, Kigo!" Izuku shouted, stomping back into the apartment. Kigo looked up from where he was apparently lounging on the couch, taking over his spot where he was working. Izuku's analysis papers were all moved to the corner of the coffee table, and Kigo's stuff was now spread out instead. Did you just steal my spot?" Kigo stuck out his tongue, continuing to fill out some worksheet. Izuku rolled his eyes, throwing an envelope at his face. "Check your damn mail." Izuku continued to get the bills to his mailbox in the lobby of the apartment, but most of Izuku's mail as Deku and Kigo's mail from his hero work went to the PO box. Izuku took a morning run to the post office every day, because they get so much mail every day that he has to check it every day. He also gets the chance to get his daily Starbucks, away from the watchful eye of his brother. He's pretty sure his drink order puts the fear of the kami in the barista, though. Izuku snatched his papers, sitting down at the dining table. He opened up the switchblade in his pocket, which he has for self-defense purposes. Izuwa-san was teaching him how to use it, and used it to open up the letters. He usually got commissions through the hero net these days, but some heroes are old-fashioned and send letters. Most of the letters were payment checks, like the commissions. Most heroes just sent him the money directly, but some still like sending checks, and the rest were commission letters. Skimming the names, he mentally added a backdraft analysis, a case for Kamui Woods, and a case for Gunhead to his to-do list. He heard a very long "fu from Kigo and looked up to find him sprawled over the side of the couch, the letter over his face. "What's the problem now?" Izuku called out, pulling out his planner and making notes. When were the bills due? When did cases need to be sent in? Where was he going to be babysat? When was he going to have time to take a nap? "I forgot about the hero gala." Izuku looked up, raising an eyebrow. "So? What do you mean, so?" Kigo asked. "I'm contractually obligated to be at every gala, and I have to look the best out of everyone there." Izuku snorted. Over the past month of living together, he learned that Kigo was a massive fashion diva. It's a hilarious contrast to Rumi, who will wear whatever she pulls out of her closet without any concern about how she looks, specifically to fuck with Kigo. It made sense. The man who spent an hour before patrol making sure his hair and makeup looked perfect was a fashion diva, and the woman who just rolls into her hero costume right before patrol doesn't care. "Couldn't you just wear one of the outfits you have?" Kigo gasped, like Izuku just said something scandalous. "Wear something I already wore? Of course not. I have to make a splash every year, that means wearing something different." Izuku rolled his eyes. He wasn't going to convince Kigo. "Well, have fun." "Oh, no you don't." Kigo stood up, grabbing Izuku and picking him up with his feathers. "If I'm going, you're going as well." "Ah, come on." Izuku shouted, kicking his feet stubbornly. "Can't I just go hang with Izuwa-san?" Kigo squinted his eyes suspiciously at him. Another thing that Izuku learned while living with him is that the man is very protective. A little too protective in Izuku's opinion, but to be fair, their first meeting wasn't the greatest. When Izuwa-san suggested getting Izuku a knife and teaching him self-defense, Kigo nearly had an aneurysm. "If I have to suffer, so do you." Izuku groaned, resigning himself to going. Kigo continued to talk as he used his other feathers to drag over Izuku's shoes. "Besides, there's gonna be other kids at the gala. It's good for like, networking and shit. I don't want to talk to rich brats, Izuku muttered, crossing his arms stubbornly. Plus, I'm not good at peopling. Izuku, you know you're a rich brat, right? Izuku sputtered. You know what I mean. Look, if you want to get into the hero industry proper as an analyst, you're gonna have to learn how to handle parties. Kigo said, using his wings to drag his boots over to him. The man was apparently feeling lazy today. Besides, you can talk to heroes about analysis and cases all day. It's the same thing, just a party instead. Izuku rolled his eyes, tying his shoes and stuffing his phone into his pocket. He also grabbed the knife as Kigo finished pulling his boots on, apparently excited enough that he didn't even check the mirror to make sure he looked presentable. Not like you really needed to be presentable while you're just running errands, but whatever, Izuku wasn't the diva here. Come on, we've gotta get ready. Kigo grabbed his arm, rushing them out of the apartment. He looked back longingly at the couch, before he was pushed out of his own apartment, resigning himself to his fate. Hey Hisashi, Nemuri. Kigo waved, Izuku still being dragged along grumpily. Yamada-san and Kayama-san were standing in front of the store, both in civilian wear. While Izuku and Kigo were stared at because of Kigo's distinctive wings, no one bat an eye at the two off-duty heroes. Thanks for coming out. Of course. Yamada-san responded. Anything for the little listener. We did our gala shopping weeks ago, but I understand being in a scramble, Kayama-san winked. And I'll never turn down any kind of shopping. Yamada-san shrugged. I'll just be wearing the same suit as always. If it works, yeah dig. Thank you. Izuku burst out. I don't understand wearing a different outfit for every occasion. Well, we need to get you a formal outfit in the first place, Kigo said. The closest thing you have is a shirt that says bow tie on it, and that will not stand. Izuku grumbled, I still don't understand why I can't just hang out with Aizawa-san. Aw, it'll be good for you little listener. Yamada-san said. You need more friends your age, and I know Tensei's brother will be there. Izuku groaned, but let himself be led inside by the adults. The store was high-end, probably worth more money than he's seen in his life. I still don't think I need all this. Nonsense. The three adults chorused at the same time. Can I help you, sirs and ma'am? The clerk asked behind the counter, looking very confused. Hi. These two need the tailor, pronto. Kayama-san said, gesturing to him and Kigo. Of course, let me go get her, the clerk bowed, going into the back room. Kayama-san turned back to him and Kigo. Who's going first? The little listener has no idea what he wants, Yamada-san said. Kigo should go in first so that he has time to decide. I'm right here, Izuku grumbled. No one listened to him. I already have an idea, Kigo said, his wings fluttering a little. I can go in first. Decision made just in time, as the clerk came back out with the tailor behind him. She was a short woman with what looked to be a spider quirk, 8 eyes with a monocle on each of them and 2 fuzzy spider arms alongside her regular pair of arms. But surprisingly, standing next to her was Bakugo Mitsuki. Bakugo-san. Auntie Mitsuki. Everyone looked at each other in shock. As Izuku was standing there dumbfounded, Auntie Mitsuki came over to him. Izu-chan, is that you? Hi, Auntie Mitsuki, he responded, a little sheepish. Oh, look at how you've grown. Auntie pulled him into a hug, pinching his cheeks as she did so. Coming in with 3 heroes. My little Izu-chan is moving up in the world. He was pretty sure his face was very red by now. Thanks Auntie. She let him go, putting her hands on his shoulders and taking a real good look at him. When did you get glasses? They look really good on you, you look very mature. And are those bags under your eyes? Are you getting enough sleep? We're working on his sleep schedule, Bakugo-san, Kigo responded, all of a sudden very polite and respectful. But we are here for a reason. Of course, Auntie stepped back, looking between the 4 of them. Have you decided who's going first? I will be, Kigo said. We wanted to give Izuku here a little bit of time to mentally prepare himself. Hey. Alright, get into the booth then, we don't have all day, Auntie said, going from overbearing Auntie to professionally feared Bakugo-san. Tisaranda-san, can I join you in the booth? Of course, Mitsuki, Tisaranda-san tittered, her mandibles clicking together, and Izuku really wanted to analyze her quirk but he didn't have time, damn it. And we're friends, you can call me Josephine. The two ushered Kigo into the booth, closing it shut behind them. The clerk had already retreated back to the counter, flipping through what looked to be a calculus textbook, and Yamada-san and Kayama-san turned on him. Your aunt is Bakugo Mitsuki? Kayama-san asked incredulously. Izuku shrugged. We're not related, but she and my mom were friends in college. I've known the Bakugos for forever. Yamada shuddered. Somehow seeing her be nice is scarier than seeing her be angry. No kidding, Kayama-san also shivered. She once yelled at me because the shade of purple I chose was too dark for my feather boa. Izuku rolled his eyes. Aren't you guys supposed to be helping me and not trauma bonding over my aunt? Right, Yamada-san made a beeline over to the counter, plucking up one of the catalogs and bringing it to a bench. The clerk didn't even look up. Kayama-san followed him to the bench, and Izuku did the same. So, take a look at this. Yamada-san dumped the catalog into his lap and let him flip through it, and tell us what stands out to you. Izuku flipped open the catalog on his lap. And flipped another page. And another. And another. Everything blurred together, words meaninglessly describe differences that for the life of him he couldn't see. He didn't really know the different sleeve or lapel types. It all turned to static in his brain. He slowly closed the catalog and put it back in Yamada-san's hands. That was all gibberish to me. Okay, then this is going to be harder than we thought. The three of them looked up, and Kigo strutted out of the booth. He was wearing a bright red suit that was somehow eye-catching but not eye-burning, with a gold chain hooked on his jacket pocket. The shirt underneath was black, and he was wearing a dark brown tie with a gold hawk pendant on the tied part of the tie. Izuku didn't think that earrings were necessarily part of the package, but nevertheless gold dangle hoop earrings were on his earrings anyways. Plus his hands were absolutely covered in red and gold rings. Kayama-san and Yamada-san immediately ripped into him. That's way too much bling. Why is your suit so bright? Brown tie? Really? Your suit is bright red and your tie is so boring. Your tie's boring but you have a massive gold hawk with ruby eyes on your chest. Are you trying to get people to look at your tits? Hey, now, let's get the kid's opinion, Kigo said. Everyone looked at Izuku, and he started to sweat. It looks nice, he said. He was not qualified for fashion opinions. See? He appreciates all my hard work, Kigo said with a smug grin. Hey, I did the hard work around here. Auntie Mitsuki said. You came into the booth with a hideous idea, and I had to do the work to make it look good. But the tie dash. The tie is brown and boring because we don't want to clutter the eyes any more than necessary, Auntie Mitsuki cut Yamada-san off. But why that shade of brown? Kayama-san asked. Izuku squinted at the tie harder and just saw that it was brown. The golden brown meshed nicely with the rest of the outfit, Auntie responded. Now, does anyone else have any more concerns about my masterpiece or can I move on? The two invested adults looked at each other, and then simply nodded. Auntie shooed Hawks back into the booth to get changed, and then knelt down to Izuku's level. Do you have any ideas? Anything at all? Izuku shook his head. I looked through the catalog, but dash. Oh, that's the first mistake. The catalog gives you too many options. Auntie looked him over appraisingly. I'm presuming you don't want to stand out like your friends. He balked, shaking his head quickly. Please no dash. That's fine. Is there anything at all I can work with? Oh. Kayama-san pulled something out of her purse, and on further reflection it turned out to be the first letter he ever sent. It was laminated, and at the bottom was his signature as Deku, written in teal glitter gel pen with a little bunny doodled next to it. Izuku was sure he was bright red. You carry that with you. I can work with this. He was slightly afraid of the glimmer in his aunt's eyes. Get into the booth. Kigo drummed his fingers nervously on his lap, the bag with his stuff sitting next to him. He could hear muffled conversation coming from the booth, but he couldn't tell what it was about, and that made him nervous. Don't get him wrong, he really did trust the woman, but sue him for being a little protective. Kigo, he's gonna be fine, Hisashi said, lounging on the bench. He had returned the catalog by this point. Yeah, Bakugo-san looks like she adores the kid. Nemuri punched him lightly on the arm. I was more worried about you in that booth. I heard a lot of yelling. Makes me wonder what shade of red you tried to pick, Hisashi snorted. You're both assholes, Kigo grumbled, and the other two started to laugh. The booth opened, and Kigo's jaw dropped open. Izuku still wore his glasses, with a little bit of makeup that brought out his freckles and covered up the bags under his eyes. He wore a dark greenish blue vest and matching slacks, the vest having light blue lapels that complemented the look. Underneath was a black dress shirt, rolled up to reveal silver cuffs, a subtle touch of bling. His tie was the same light blue as his lapels, and clipped over the knot was a glitter teal pin of the bunny that he uses as his Deku signature. Wow, Kigo said. You look great. I'm almost convinced you're well rested. Izuku rolled his eyes. You dick. No, but seriously, you look amazing, Nemuri said. You're so adorable, I could just pinch your cheeks. The tips of his ears went red. Please don't. The silver cuffs are a nice touch, Hisashi said. Finally, my artistry is appreciated, Bakugo-san said smugly. Izu-chan, get back in the booth so that we can get that bagged up for you. All right, auntie, he responded, all but fleeing back to the booth. All three heroes pulled out their wallets at the same time. Bakugo-san simply waved them off. No need to pay for Izu-chan's suit, I'll cover it. I'm just glad that he finally agreed to let me dress him in something fancy. But you're paying double for your suit, Tisaranda pointed at Kigo. I think your suit is worth more than his, Nemuri whispered. Kigo shrugged and handed over his debit card. I'm glad you're taking care of him, Bakugo-san said, something that was, dare he say it, almost soft. I'm glad to know him, he's a real treat, Nemuri responded. Izuku peeked around the door, holding the bag in his arms and back in that shirt that says shirt on it. Not that I don't like seeing you, auntie, but can we please go home? I have to feed Sushi. Of course, of course. Don't worry about the suit, it's already been paid for. Bakugo-san pulled him into a hug. Now, remember what we talked about. If that hero guardian of yours hurts you in any way, let me know and I will shove lawsuits so far up their ass that they will be tasting paper for days. I will, auntie, promise, Izuku said, patting his aunt's arm. As they left the store, parting ways with Nemuri and Hisashi, Kigo only had one thing on his mind, well, two, but he always thought about fried chicken. What did you talk with your aunt about? Izuku just smiled slyly. Don't worry about it. Chapter 18, Off to the Ball. UA. Teachers and Company, 9:10 a.m. Deku-chan, Izuku, is online. Deku-chan, PLS save me Izawa. Deku-chan, I'm Gondai. Deku-chan, Izuku, Pink Panther, Tsukachi, Jack Bugs Bunny, Mirako, Falcon, Hawks, Captain Jack Sparrow, Ms. Joke, Eraserdad, Eraserhead, Fussro Dot, Present Mike, Anya Amesova, Midnight, and Doctor Strange, Sir Nightai, are online. Pink Panther, Kid. Jack Bugs Bunny, just give me a name, I'll kick their ass. Falcon, ignore him. Falcon, he's Bane dramatic. Captain Jack Sparrow, bout what? Falcon, the hero gala. Captain Jack Sparrow, ah. Deku-chan, I'm go be eaten alive. Pink Panther, Kid, I'm sure you'll be fine. Deku-chan, why can't I stay Izawa? Eraserdad, socializing will be good for you. Fussro Dot, I'll be there lil listener. Deku-chan, I've been betrayed. Anya Amesova, it's the one day of the year that Shao can get a full night of sleep. Anya Amesova, number one can take that away from him. Fussro Dot, it's true. Fussro Dot, the 1 year I tried to get Shao to come he punched me. Anya Amesova, I'll be bringin' my niece. Anya Amesova, I'm sure you two will get along. Doctor Strange, every time I enter this chat, the grammar gets worse and worse. Deku-chan, Sasaki-san. Deku-chan, you will save me right? Doctor Strange, from what? Falcon, the hero gala. Doctor Strange, ah. Doctor Strange, unfortunately for you, I am going with my sidekicks and my intern. Deku-chan, 0. Deku-chan, betrayal. Izuku grumbled, readjusting the tie again and refusing to look at the other two heroes. He'd much rather be at home working, with Sushi in his lap and in pajamas, but no. He had to be in a stuffy suit, even if he did look good, and it probably could have been less comfortable, and in a limousine, riding with Kigo and Rumi to the Hero Gala. Kigo was in the outfit he bought yesterday, lounging with one wing tucked around Izuku. He looked like he just stepped off of a runway. Izuku knew the secret. He spent 4 hours before this just getting his makeup and hair perfect. He knew because Kigo also spent those 4 hours making sure that Izuku was also perfectly done up. Meanwhile, Rumi clearly didn't have the same qualms. The only improvement to her hair was that it was combed, and she was wearing a dark purple vest and slacks that look like they just came out of the closet and haven't been touched for a year. She was wearing a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to her elbows, and she was wearing the same silver sneakers that she always wore. Rumi told him herself that a few years ago, Kigo insisted on getting her a good outfit for the gala, so she got the laziest option she could and has been wearing it ever since. While Kigo and Rumi were bickering over outfits, Kigo was trying to convince Rumi to wear more bling. It was not working. Izuku slipped out his phone, reasoning that even if he couldn't do work, he could at least check his email and get something done. A red feather snatched his phone out of his hands. "Hey!" Izuku shouted, lunging for it. "Give it back." "Nope." Kigo tucked the phone into one of his pockets. "You're supposed to be socializing and having fun. No work. Come on. Just in the car? I've got things to do." "Nope." Kigo used his wing to tuck Izuku in closer to him. "If I'm using the gala as an excuse to procrastinate on paperwork, you are too." "Wow, so responsible," Rumi deadpanned, getting a middle finger from Kigo in return. "You're also procrastinating," Kigo shot back, trying one final time in vain to comb Izuku's hair. "Seriously, where did he get the comb from?" Izuku batted Kigo's hand away from his hair. "How am I the responsible one here?" "Excuse me, the term you're looking for is a workaholic," Kigo said. "And the term you're looking for is slacker." Rumi started cackling, full on smacking the empty seat beside her as the door opened. The butler looked very confused, but said, "Sirs, madam, we have arrived." Izuku started to sweat as he heard the sound of reporters clamoring outside. Kigo shooed Rumi out. "Get out there." "Why am I going first?" "Because you need to make us look good." Rumi rolled her eyes, but she winked at Izuku. She slipped out, and Izuku could hear her snappy remarks as she hogged the reporter's attention. Kigo turned back to Izuku, wrapping an arm around his shoulders and pulling him close. "Hey, you'll be fine. The reporters aren't broadcasting this live, and we filled out the form. They're not allowed to release your information or pictures." "What about you? Don't you want pictures?" Kigo shrugged. "I can always come back and rock the runway later." Izuku sighed. "Let's just get this over with." The door opened, and Kigo flaunted out, wrapping a wing around Izuku to shield him from the lights. Izuku tuned out the reporter's questions, only really registering Kigo saying ladies, I'll come back later as they fled to the manor. Once they went inside, Izuku let out a sigh of relief. Kigo chuckled, and Izuku flipped him the bird. "Put your birds away," Kigo said, covering Izuku's hand with his. "Anyways, let's go find Tensei. I'm sure he'll know where all the cool kids hang out." Izuku grumbled, letting himself be dragged along. He swore he could hear Rumi laughing at him. "Hi," Kigo said cheerily, while Izuku let himself be dragged along, stewing in the misery of being outside of his lovely apartment. "Were we late?" "You were 5 minutes earlier than usual," Tensei ribbed Kigo. Another teenager, who looked similar to Tensei and who Izuku presumed was the man's younger brother, started chopping his arms, and said, "That's still an hour and 55 minutes late. We were 5 minutes early?" "Shoot." Kigo pretended to check his non-existent watch, then started dragging them away. "Come on, Izuku, we need to leave so we can come back and be properly fashionably late." Izuku started to thrash, mostly just playing it up because as much as he tries to deny it, he too is a dramatic bitch. "No. I survived once already. I'm not going back in front of the vultures." Tensei was laughing behind them, and Kigo brought the two over to the table. There were a few kids there already. Izuku spotted a dual hair boy with a scar over one side of his face, a girl with pink curls, and a kid with his teeth on the outside of his face sitting with the itis. Kigo sat Izuku down at the table, who was grumbling. "You're new. I haven't seen you at one of these before," the kid with teeth said. "I'm Honmuki Jizu. My uncle is Snatch." The pink-haired girl smiled, shoving some sort of skewer in her mouth. Hatsum Mei, future CEO of Hatsum Inc. Todoroki Shouto, the dual-haired kid said curtly. I'm sorry for not introducing myself. The smaller Itza said. My name is Itza Tinya, and I'm the younger brother of Itza Tensei. You're Tinya? I've heard a lot about you from Tensei. Izuku smiled. I'm Midoriya Izuku. It's good to meet you all. Are you the analyst my brother talks with regularly? Tinya asked. Izuku just nodded. That's amazing. He flushed, covering his face with his hands as Tinya continued to ramble on about how smart and great Deku was. It's not that big of a deal, Izuku muttered. Wait, so you're Deku? Hatsum asked, scooting over closer. Izuku nodded meekly. That's great. Be my business partner. Dash. Broccoli-chan. Izuku groaned. Everything was going on all at the same time. He slumped onto the table to hide his face from Kayama. Hello Kayama-san. Tinya said. Hi children. Izuku looked up. Standing next to Kayama was a taller girl with straight black hair, who must be Kayama's niece. Kayama smiled, nudging her niece forwards. This is my niece, Yayorozu Momo. Izuku waved. Midoriya Izuku. And Izuku sighed. I'm also Deku. Yayorozu sat down next to Todoroki. It's excellent to meet you. Izuku smiled back. I'm glad to meet you too. He looked around, seeing that Kayama, Tensei, and Kigo were gone and breathed a sigh of relief. So, how did you become a famous analyst? Honmuki asked. No offense, but you're our age. Izuku shrugged. It's a funny story, actually. Kigo's wings tickled, and he smiled behind his cup as he heard Izuku ramble happily to his new friends. He heard a new voice then, it sounded like the American hero cow lady and her younger sister. He was happy that Izuku was finding friends. Are you still spying on Izuku? I thought he's doing fine, Rumi said, swirling her wine around. She was being snarky, but Kigo could hear her concern. Not actively spying on them, just checking in once in a while, Kigo responded. How did you get a feather on him without him noticing? Nemuri asked. I hid it in his hair. He got snickers in response. What? It's like a bush. You can hide anything in there. They got more serious then. How are the cases going? Tensei asked. No moves on the school district yet, Kigo responded. Apparently Nezu wants Izuku to help take it down as part of his curriculum. Nezu's still getting evidence for the lawsuit against Musudafo Public Hospital, apparently they're not cooperating. Nemuri hesitated, before leaning in. And Midoriya-san. Kigo shook his head. No new leads. Tensei frowned. Well, we're keeping an eye out at the agency. I know Mirai's looking into it too, although he's more focused on the Shihasakai case right now. I was thinking of asking more heroes onto this case, Kigo said. The more eyes looking for them, the better, right? Nemuri nodded. I reached out to a couple friends at Katsubutsu and Shikatsu, maybe they moved their operations out of Musudafo and over to another city. I don't know if them moving cities or just lying low is worse, Rumi muttered. Kigo shook his head. Let's focus on getting more people on the case. They split up, Kigo going to find a few heroes he recognized from working on other cases. Hopefully the more people on board, the faster these villains can be caught. He doesn't want to find out what these bodies are for the hard way. You could do so much with your quirk. Izuku said excitedly, having rounded onto Yayorozu. Have you tried creating gases? Oh, what about if you make food for yourself if you find yourself running low on lipids? You said you can't create organic material, what about wood? What about Dash? He stopped himself when he realized that the other girl was just blinking at him. Sorry, I know I can go kind of fast. Please, don't be, she responded quickly. Your questions are very insightful. When I can understand them. I promise my analyses are usually a lot more polished than this, when I spend time on them instead of dumping my thoughts out. Brain dumping is an important part of the process. Hatsum shouted from her end of the table. The best ideas come from that initial rush of thought. That spark of inspiration. Yeah, but I usually save my brain dumping for the cat, and not to people's faces, Izuku rubbed his neck nervously. Tsunatri looked up at that. Cat? She asked. Izuku brightened up. Yeah. I have a cat, her name is Sushi. I would show you pictures, but I don't have my phone on me. Oh, before I forget, Yayorozu made a piece of paper and a pencil from her arm. Tsunatri, Midoriya, if you could write your phone numbers here, I could add you to the group chat for Hero Kids. Izuku muttered his thanks, quickly scrawling out his number and handing it to Tsunatri. She seemed to look a little relieved that the numbers were familiar to her and wrote her number down too. I can't wait to start making babies with you. Hatsum shouted. Izuku sputtered as some of the table tried to hide their laughter and the rest of the table just laughed. She means her inventions, Honuki explained through wheezing laughter. Oh okay, Izuku's face was still red as he took a bite of his food. That makes more sense. I don't mean to be rude, Tsunatri said, tilting her head a little bit. But is that a feather in your hair, Midoriya? A feather? Izuku asked, before he groaned. Damn it, Kigo. Midway through a conversation with Manuel and Native, Kigo sneezed. Hold still, Yayorozu said, and Izuku did the best he could. Thank goodness she was so tall. Got it? She held the red feather in her hand, handing it back to Izuku. Thanks, Izuku said sincerely, then paused. He turned to Todoroki. You can create ice using your quirk, right? Todoroki nodded, looking confused. Izuku didn't think it hurt to get a little brotherly revenge. He held the feather out to Todoroki. Can you freeze it? Kigo yelped, feeling cold register through his feather and at the tips of his wings. There was only one person who could have done this. Damn it, Izuku. Izuku's eyes were gleaming as he rambled happily about Todoroki's quirk. So if you made the air really cold with your right side, and then made a little fire with your left, you could create a massive explosion. Please do not create explosions, a voice said dryly behind him. Izuku turned around and saw Sasaki standing behind him, with 3 teens standing behind him like ducklings. Hi Sasaki-san. Izuku grinned, waving. And they're only hypothetical explosions. Sasaki raised an eyebrow. Like how the raccoons that have infested my agency are only hypothetically there. Izuku shrugged. With a sigh, Sasaki beckoned to the 3 teens to introduce themselves. Hello, my name is Tugata Mirio, or Lemillion. And my mentor is Sir Nightai. The blonde said, shaking Izuku's hand. Hi. Heido Nejire, or Nejire-chan, and my mentor is Ryukyu. Skipping the handshake entirely, the older girl instead pulled Izuku into a short hug. Amajiki Tamaki, Tsunader. My mentor is Fat Gum. The nervous teen responded. Izuku just gave him a short wave, he was clearly anxious. Midoriya Izuku, or Deku, Izuku smiled. You're Deku? Tugata asked. Sir talks about you a lot. I'd love it if you could do an analysis. Of course. Izuku grinned, leaning in. What's your quirk? Tugata went through a brief explanation of his quirk, and Izuku was off, hypothesizing and questions and theorizing. The words were less for them and more for himself as he talked through his thoughts. Wow. Heido said, her eyes wide. Do you do this for everyone? Izuku blushed as the entire table behind him said yes in unison. Sasaki rolled his eyes, patting Izuku on the shoulder. Save the analysis for later, alright? Just get to know each other. Tugata pulled up a seat, the other 2 following suit. Would you like to know about my quirk? Heido asked. Izuku's eyes practically sparkled as he answered yes, without hesitation. Kigo smiled, as they were driven home in the limousine. Izuku was zonked out, leaning on his shoulder and snoring softly. Rumi was asleep across from him, although she was out because of the alcohol rather than the excitement of meeting new people. He was glad that the green bean was making more friends. And he was glad that they had more eyes on Midoriya Inko's case. His mom's death hit Izuku pretty hard, so Kigo's happy that he found friends his age he could lean on. Kigo shifted, letting his wing drape over Izuku like a blanket. He'll be alright. That's where we'll leave off for this episode. Thanks a ton for listening along. I'd love to hear any questions, comments, or concerns you have about the channel or series in the comment section down below, and I will see you in my next video. Ciao for now, lovelies.